Professor Peter Van Bladeren, who is the next speaker. And Peter is now, and he told me just before the meeting, you are the head of the regulatory and scientific affairs at Nestlé. And you have also been head of the Nestlé Research Center at Lausanne, and previously director of the Applied Food Science Organization in the Netherlands called TNO. And you are still maintaining the contact with academia as a part-time professor in toxicology at Wageningen University. You're very welcome, and I really look forward to your speech, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And I thank you very much for inviting me here in this beautiful place. And I must say, the view sitting where I sat just recently was much better than the view is now. It's not bad personal. So, I think the two things that I'm going to tell you are first of all, maybe partially in response to Hubert Luiker, is that as a company, and it's the same for most big companies, we like rules. The more rules, the better. And in fact, we have great confidence in EFSA, Codex, FDA, etc., who make all these rules, because it keeps the playing field level, and it keeps out the people who try to cut corners left and right. And we are in favor of having things well organized and well done. The second thing, and that's maybe, I'm sure you talked about this yesterday, and Leif talked about this a little bit in his last slide on where he saw additives going, is that I would say we like additives less and less. And if I look at what our researchers, our food technologists are doing at the moment, then it's more inventing ways of getting rid of additives than inventing new ones. Has to do partly with the consumer and partly with probably some reasons why we're starting to add additives. I'll go into that in detail, but why would you add an additive to keep something safe for, or give it a shelf life of a year or 2 years, as some of my marketing colleagues like to have? Then you have a product that stands in a warehouse for 2 years. Where's the advantage of that? I think it's better to work then on your sales, on your supply chain, and do away with the additives that are necessary for that. So that's basically my presentation, and I will now give it again. So I'll talk a little bit about Nestlé R&D, food additives, roles, some of the regulatory hurdles that we see, and then go into our efforts on clean label. Now, first of all, I'm not going to give you an overview of everything that Nestlé does, but regulatory and scientific affairs is for us part of R&D in Nestlé. It shows also that regulatory is traditionally compliance, but we see this as a source of innovation more than anything else, and something to be taken into account the moment you try to do innovation. Total about 2,500 people. There's a lot of places around the world, and there's a whole system in doing this that I will not explain. But you'll see somewhere in here. You see in the center here the Nestlé Research Center in Lausanne, of which I was the director until 3 years ago, when I was head of science. And then my boss decided I was old enough to have affairs, so now I'm scientific affairs. But from science we go into application, and we have for each business unit and each type of product we have separate organizations. Now, in addition to this, since we're talking food safety and additives are things that heavily have to do with food safety, we have a second organization that also comprises around 600 people and a large number of laboratories that is responsible for the quality and safety of our products. So we're all connected to factories. And those are the people that check the raw materials before they come in, and the products before they go out into the market. Now, to run a big organization like this, you of course have to have a philosophy some sense of direction. And this slide is from my boss, Stefan Katsikas, who is the Chief Technology Officer of Nestlé. And what he sees as the key things to do for us is, first of all, at the top, we're a food and beverage company. We call ourselves a nutrition, health and wellness company. We can go afterwards into why we don't still sell chocolate and ice cream, but we think that has a place in this. But the key thing for the future is this: start healthy, stay healthy. Start healthy, we're talking about babies and children, and people themselves while they're still healthy. So we try to meet nutritional needs. The future is unmet nutritional needs, so if we notice that something is needed, we can do something about it. And most of our research efforts at the moment are directed at personalized nutrition, which means not so much nutrition as it means diagnostics, finding out what food does to a body, and then devising ways of measuring this, because then only then can you do something with it. If we then talk about this, stay healthy, so add life to years is more to do with aging. I think the two things that are key for this presentation is, first, do no harm. That comes from the old Hippocrates. You treat somebody, you give somebody something. First thing you want to do is it shouldn't make him worse, make him worse off in any way. And the second thing is inspired by nature, and that fits again with what I think is the future of additives. Is go away from more artificial things and go into more natural surroundings. I'm connected to a university. I'm actually a professor of toxicology, and I love finding toxic compounds in nature, especially vegetables, I would say. So we can have that discussion afterwards. If we now look at what is happening around us, and things that are of great interest to the food industry and to us all, I think this is one example. The public perception towards processed food. Pointer here. This is a picture of Mr. Monteiro, a Brazilian professor, who has actually devised the whole system to split the world of food into unprocessed, I suppose, raw, processed and ultra-processed food. Ultra-processed food contains also bread, other things we eat normally, and he is convinced, and with him a lot of other people, that ultra-processed food is the cause of all evil when it comes to health. It causes the obesity, diabetes, blood pressure, and everything that goes along with this. And in fact, the IARC seems to be agreeing with him. They're also looking at what is the difference between moderately processed and highly processed food. And what is even more worrying for us then, that very recently, this is quite recent, the FAO considers both food classifications appropriate. Now, appropriate is one thing, but what do you do with it is another thing. And personally, I think that there are a number of gaps in the reasonings of both organizations. First of all, in the scientific papers that Professor Monteiro has written about this, he states very clearly, anything prepared at home falls out of this discussion. So you bake your bread at home. It is not dangerous. You get it from a supermarket in a nice plastic bag. It is extremely dangerous, and I think those are things that are not really helpful in the discussion for the future. But it is the world we live in. If we now look at additives themselves, and Lynn, maybe you showed some similar pictures yesterday. I was not there, but the perception toward food additives in the world is also getting is also not very good. Every day you go to the dentist, you go to the hairdresser, and you find papers there describing new horror stories on some of the things that people eat every day. Thinking that they're not eating them in other circumstances. So I think one of the things that is needed and is I would say our joint responsibility is to make sure that as many people in the world know what is actually going on, know what a food additive is. Most people know E numbers, and they don't know, and they say, well, this is probably very dangerous. They don't know what is behind E numbers. And I found this nice picture on the web somewhere. They don't know that these E numbers are naturally present. They're actually natural compounds. They have nothing to do with the stories that were on this page. Now, when we go to regulations, as I said, we like regulations. We are fine with them. We have Codex, we have EFSA and the EU and the FDA. And in fact, if you look around the world, Nestlé is present in practically all countries in the world. I think with the exception of North Korea, where we don't have an office, but for the rest it's almost everywhere. And they tell me that even in North Korea you can find Nescafé somewhere. So, it's, so we tend to look at the world as people who are following Codex, people who are following FDA, and people who are following EFSA. And it's quite interesting, Hubert, to see that EFSA has been coming up in the rankings over the years, I would say. There are more and more followers of EFSA nowadays, which I think is a great compliment, and it shows that they're doing good work. If something gets approved by EFSA, it's almost any government will accept it. And then, of course, safety, and we heard about this, so we'll not go into this in view of the time. We don't need to repeat all this, but why are additives used? And that's maybe something to think about for a few minutes. We've heard lectures, they're used to maintain and improve nutritional value. That's great, adding vitamins and minerals that are not present. I think that's also explainable to everybody, so that's a very good thing. Maintain and improve quality, safety and freshness. Yes, good thing. Except when you overuse it, I would say. If you need to add something to keep it fresh and safe for 2 years because your sales organization thinks that it's much easier to have it under hand and they can sell it whenever it's necessary, or your production bosses think, well, it's nicer to have this factory run all the time, we stick it in a warehouse and then it stays good for 2 years. I think that's not a good idea. I think it's a much better idea, and this is, I mean, not all the people in Nestlé would agree with me, this is my personal opinion. I think it's much better to look at your supply chain, make sure that you make it as short as possible, and if you need to ship things from here to there, then look at exactly how much shelf life you need and make sure that it's as fresh as possible when it gets there. Then you also have no problems with bacteria counts going up in the course of time, etc. You can deal with it as we are. Now, the last three, enhance flavor, maintain consistency, and maintain wholesomeness, palatability. I think this is what makes consumers suspicious. Why do you need this? You, Nestlé, you must be using cheap stuff and adding things to make it taste good. I mean, that's the thing you hear, and that's what people think. And I will not say it's not always right. No, I don't think this is the case. But you make yourself quite vulnerable by using it this way. So I think the challenge, and that's the challenge for us here, and something that our food technologists are working on very hard, is to do this without additives. You know, you can change raw materials. You can change processing of raw materials in such a way that they can do this without having to add additives left and right. If we now go to restrictions, I was asked to say that, you know, what do we see as problems in regulations? As I said, very little. There's one that is a bit cumbersome at the moment, and that is this one. And I will show this to you. There's an EU directive on the use of sweeteners, and very rightly it says, well, you should only use sweeteners if you reduce the energy in foods. Makes perfect sense. But then there's a second regulation that goes into the details, and it says energy reduced food means that you need to reduce the energy by 30%. And that's not always easy. And I have an example of this. And without thinking, I took ice cream. And this is water ice cream. And if you look at the table here, so we reduce the energy with 30%. That means you also take out almost all the sugar. But in ice cream, and I'm not a technologist, so this comes from my colleagues in Beauvais in France, where we do the ice cream development. Sugar contributes to the total solids, and total solids you need in ice cream, because if you don't have that, it becomes very cold ice, and it sticks to your tongue, and it becomes basically not safe for the consumer. And that borderline is around here at 17% of total solids, and you see the 17% of total solids you already reach if you go down by 20%. So in other words, in water ice cream you cannot use artificial sweeteners in Europe because you can't reduce the energy by 30%. And there's a few more examples for that other companies have to deal with. So that's where somebody puts a number without thinking what the consequences might be and whether there might be good sides in making this a bit more flexible. But that's about the only example I've been able to find of where we're not happy with regulations. I think our big problem is more on what consumers expect and what do they want. Now, we went through this concerns, complex names, use of additives with negative reputation, unsafe additives, and what the consumers want, purity, authenticity. They also want some education through labeling. Well, we went to the claims. They want claims to be truthful and not misleading. It's a general consumer insight. So here we're fully behind EFSA as well. And then this one, they want clean labels. They prefer food that contain ingredients that they may recognize. So this is actually a big undertaking we're doing at the moment in Nestlé. So we go from what we call old health, where we reduce the bad things, positive nutrition, we add the good things. This is all to what, and I haven't found out this word, this new health, or we say like this is transparency and purity. Now, purity is for the technologists. Transparency is something that is for regulatory affairs. We are in full favor of making sure that everybody knows exactly what is in their food. The label should be seriously readable, and it should be seriously clear on what is where. Now, E-numbers don't necessarily help clarity. That's one of the points. So what do? We remove or replace ingredients that are chemically modified or synthesized. We simplify the ingredient list, and then we remove or replace ingredients that are not perceived friendly by the consumer. And all of this in full transparency, and then I added quality because you want actually when you make a product you would like people to think this is even better than what I thought before I bought it. And I have two nice examples of this. One comes from Poland, where this is a Maggi soup. It's called vinegary in Poland. Modified starch replaced potato starch, hydrogenated vegetable fat, chicken fat, concentrated garlic, dried garlic, and then a number of these things were simply removed, and then it was still very good soup. And the consumers liked it a lot better. The second example is this one, and this is really very nice. These are Smarties, and the pre-2006 Smarties contained these colors, wonderfully brilliant colors. At some point we decided to go to non-artificial colors, so there was this whole list, and in fact from 2011 on the colors are completely natural. I think that's, I was never involved in this, but I think this is a wonderful achievement, and you can see that the blue color Lynn that we discussed was spirulina, and what it is now I suppose it's the hibiscus and the black carrot. Alright, so in summary, the role of food additives is clear. Regulations are great at the moment, but the consumer perception has changed, and I think the challenge is to obtain the same effects without additives or with suitable, natural, non-toxic alternatives. That's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Do you have any questions to Peter?
Thank you for a very interesting speech, and especially the smarties that I always had to buy each Saturday for my grandchildren.
Yes.
My question for you is, you took a lot of information from consumers. How do you achieve this information, and whom are your normal consumer?
We have, well, basically two ways. That is we have the business side, where we do lots of consumer studies with specific products to see what people like, what people don't like, and there's a whole organization for this. And then in the Nestlé Research Center we have a whole group on consumer insight that uses all the normal tools, internet questionnaires, going around asking people. We have nice laboratories where we can monitor people, what they do in supermarkets and how they behave and things like this.
Thank you very much. I was wondering, because you are spread all over the globe. You have a lot of different countries, a lot of different cultures. And you're talking about this trend that people want to avoid additives.
Yes.
Can you see any differences in different parts of the world? And could you say a few words about that?
You can see differences, but I think the main thing is that at the moment trends move very quickly around the world. I mean, everybody is connected. In the past, in the past you could have a food safety issue in one part of the world, nobody else would notice. Nowadays something happens and everybody runs back to the supermarket. And I think this is the same. It's the same here.
So it's not a certain part of the world that is leading the trend.
No, I think it's clear that the United States, Europe, and certain parts of Asia are in front there. But if you start doing it, then you see the same things coming up in other places. And in fact, if I can add something to this, as a global company, because you do business everywhere, you also want to treat everybody the same way. Right? If you take out, I mean, if you take the colors, we are convinced that everything is safe, of course. But if you take them out in one place, why not take them out in all the other places as well?
And how does this affect the price, for example?
Well, that's usually the thing we work very hard on until we find a solution. It's not going to happen. Yeah, that's true.
Any more questions to Peter?
Is it just the naming that is different? Is it the same thing you put there, but you name it differently?
Yes. Well, I think another question we could look. What is it? If you say carrots, what is the coloring in carrots, right? It's beta carotene. Voila. But so it's both. I mean, you change for natural ingredients, and then you change the naming to something the consumer can recognize.
Yes, but you put beta carotene there.
But yeah, but you know, if you think, I mean, I think it's actually more helpful than what you're saying. You're trying to cheat the consumer. No, beta carotene doesn't help anybody except us in the room because we know what it is.
So that's it's allowed.
Yeah.
Okay, so you use a carrot juice and not carotene to replace the carotene, but in carrot juice there are other components, so what about the effects of the other components?
Well, no idea, but I'm sure they've been tested, they're safe, if that's a human, yeah.
Could I suggest we all give Peter, Hubert and Leif a warm hand and thank you for all your contributions.